Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So I want to let you all know that I've been having problems with my internet connection, so you all have to bear with me. Hopefully, truth to power without fear. So I want to let you all know that I've been having problems so I've been having problems with my internet connection. So there may be moments of buffering in this video, just to let you all know. So if you can bear with me, I'm gonna power through this video, hopefully. If not, I may have to just use my phone and put this video up later, maybe tomorrow or later on tonight. But I'm gonna try to do this live right now. I see that we have a couple of people tuning in right now. So what I'm talking about in this video is the whole idea of living while black. You know, the idea that you have these racists who use police as a weapon against black people. So if you bear with me a second, I'll get started. I'm going to share my screen in a second. I want to thank the people who are tuning in. I know it's very late and it's a Saturday night. I know most people are out and about doing, what most people do on Saturday nights, having fun with their friends and family and loved ones. But I hope that people can tune in. For those people who aren't able to watch it now, hopefully you'll watch it on the playback because I have some important information that I want to talk about in this video. So I'm going to show a series of articles about situations involving racial profiling, and then I'm going to provide my commentary as we go along. I'm probably going to summarize most of these stories, and then after I do so, I'm going to talk about the implications of these things. I want to provide my commentary. And also what I'm going to do is I'm going to read your comments as we go along as well. I'm going to stop between each story, respond to some of the things that you all have to say about these stories. And then at the end, I'm going to provide my commentary on this whole matter, this whole issue of police basically being used as weapons against black people. So if you can bear with me, I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to start with the first story about this guy at a pool who basically racially profiled a black guest to that pool. So if you can bear with me a second, I'll get to that story. Just 1 second. Okay, so here's the first story. And this story takes place in North Carolina. You had this white man by the name of Adam Bloom, and he basically singled out this black woman and asked her to show ID when she went to a swimming pool in the neighborhood. So I'm going to read a couple of excerpts from this article. And, there's been some updates. So a woman who went by the name of Jasmine Edwards on Facebook posted a video of her encounter with this particular man at a swimming pool. This man basically called the police on this black woman. The black woman came to the pool and he asked her for her, does she live there? And then she said that she does live there. She had a pool pass. She had a card that the residents have. And this man said, well, if you live here, I need to see your ID so that I can know that you in fact live here, so that I can prove your address and all that kind of stuff, know where you live and all that kind of stuff. And this woman went on to say, well, nobody else is being asked to show their ID. Why are you singling me out for this? And eventually this guy calls the police on this woman. And this video that she posted is going viral. It's at 5 million views. I will post a link to the video in the description box, and also the link to the video is in this article from the New York Times. So after this whole incident occurred where this man called the police on a black woman, who lives in the area, who has every right to be at that swimming pool, calls the police on her because she didn't produce an ID, which was not required under the rules for this particular swimming pool. So this man lost his position at his job. He also lost his position as somebody in charge of this pool and somebody on the board of the community association. So this man has suffered consequences, but it's just a shame that you can't even swim while being black nowadays. You can't even go to a swimming pool while being black without somebody assuming that you don't belong there, assuming that you are not a resident, assuming that you're up to no good, you're trying to get over, and that you're some outsider trying to invade their neighborhoods, man. And that's one of the pitfalls about like going to these predominantly black, predominantly white environments. You're a black person in this predominantly white environment. These people assume that you don't belong there. They assume that you're up to no good. They assume that you're a criminal and all that kind of stuff. So here we have a simple situation where someone is simply trying to swim in their pool where they have every right to be there. But yet and still, this man felt that it was appropriate to call the police on this woman. And I'm going to go into like the implications of these people calling the police and how significant that is towards the end of my commentary. But I want to and as nonsensical as that. Here you have a young black boy trying to set up a business. He has his own lawn cutting service. It's called Reggie's Lawn Cutting Service. He's the CEO of that particular business. There are other kids that work with him in this endeavor. And you have this neighbor who is so petty and so just negative, man. This neighbor who is so concerned about his property line and this and that he's going to call the police on this little black boy who's simply trying to earn a living, simply cutting grass and stuff like that. Somebody that's doing the right thing. He's not out here engaging in mischief or anything like that. He's not out here engaging in any criminal activity. He's doing something productive. He has a business. He's going to work. He's working hard during the summer when most kids are just playing and having fun. But these people, these racist people, and there's no doubt in my mind that race has something to do with this. I mean, they call the police on this little brother simply for mistakenly cutting a portion of their lawn. I mean, this is outrageous. And this couple, according to this article, has called the police many times. This article says that they called the police an estimated 60 times in the 18 years that they lived at their current address. That is insane. I mean, that is a complete waste of police resources with all these serious things going on in the world, all these serious things happening in Ohio, where you have actual real crimes going on, and you have these imbeciles tying up the system by putting in all these frivolous calls to law enforcement. And that reminds me of another point that I'm going to make towards the end of this series of summaries of articles. Just got to write that down so that thought won't escape me. So this is crazy, man. And I'm sure that a lot of people have heard about these stories. These stories have been going on for the last week or so. But this is absolutely ridiculous that the police would be called in this type of situation to harass a young black brother who's simply trying to earn a living. All right, so I'm going to pause for a second, and then I'm going to go through the chat, And hopefully y'all can ride with me. I know that there's some problems with my internet connection. It keeps fading in and out. So hopefully it won't be too choppy. So Blue Nagroom says, first police are the racists. Now racists use the police who are just doing their jobs as attack dogs against blacks. Absolutely. Pretty soon they're going to call the cops on us for just breathing. Exactly. And Westwood went on to call these people parasites because they are just that, parasites. All right, so let me just go back into these stories. Y'all can bear with me a second. Yeah, I think I'm still sharing my screen, I think. Hold on, I think I stopped sharing my screen. All right, just bear with me a second. So I'm gonna go on to this third article. So you have this situation right here, you know, and it's crazy. I mean, you can't even eat while black now. You had this black family go to a Subway at Coweta County, Georgia. You know, they went to the Subway restaurant, and apparently an employee called 911. They were complaining, you know, this person who called 911 was complaining about the family keep going back and forth to the restroom. And they said maybe they're putting soda in water cups. And because of that, these people went and called the police on this family. You know, the police said they were doing nothing wrong. You know, this is an upstanding family where you have the kids are in college and everything, doing the right thing, quote unquote, and still they're treated like this. Still, they are treated like criminals. You know, still they are viewed as being suspicious just by the color of their skin. And they face this kind of harassment, not at some mom and pop store in some backwoods part of the country, but they are in a Subway restaurant, a mainstream restaurant. And this is an absolute disgrace. And it reminds me of that whole Starbucks situation where you had those brothers being harassed by Starbucks employees for waiting while black. And now here you have a situation where these people paid to eat in this restaurant. You know, they went to the restaurant, they paid to be served at that restaurant. And even after that, you know, they were criminalized. They were viewed as being suspicious, being up to no good. And the police were called to the scene. And again, I'm going to talk about the significance of calling these police on black people once I get to the end of this commentary. So hopefully I'm looking at my internet connection. Hopefully there won't be any problems. So I'm going to go on to the next story. You have this other story where you had this DC area Catholic priest go off on black mourners, you know, who were waiting in a sanctuary for a funeral. It's absolutely outrageous, man. You know, and all these stories will be posted in the description box so that you all can read them for yourself. So you have this article from the Washington Post, and then you also have an article from The Root about this situation. Both of these articles will be in the description box so that you can read them for yourself. But this priest has been placed on leave for misconduct, you know, because he basically ordered these people who were mourning the loss of their loved one. He ordered these people to leave. He told them to get the hell out of his church. That's what this man said. This is supposed to be a man of God. You know, at a time when a family is mourning, this guy tells that family to get the hell out of his church. Now, there's a lot of details missing from this story that we need to know, that I would like to know, but the facts as they stand right now are very disturbing, to say the least. I mean, here he is saying that there will be no funeral, no repast. Everyone get the hell out of my church. That's what this guy said to these people who are mourning the loss of a loved one. And after this, after this incident became public, the church issued a statement. They said what occurred at St. Mary's Parish this morning does not reflect the Catholic Church's fundamental calling to respect and uplift the God-given dignity of every person. And then went on to say this, I think the pastor, another pastor or bishop said this. He said, I want to reach out to you first to offer my prayers for your loved one, that God will grant her a place in his kingdom of eternal light and love, and my condolences to your family. On days such as today, our response should always be one of compassion and sympathy for the bereaved, as well as prayers for the deceased. I reiterate and reinforce the sincere apology to you and your family, and it goes on. But this is crazy, man. I mean, here you have a black family mourning the loss of their loved one. And I want to know, like, why this priest went off, like what set him off. But no matter what happened, no matter what kind of disagreement may have occurred, these kinds of actions are not even justified. I mean, this pastor even acknowledges that his actions weren't justified in the big scheme of things. So you got this situation going on. I mean, we're taught that these religious people are supposed to be people of faith. These people are supposed to be compassionate towards other human beings. They teach about the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But yet this pastor is telling these people to get the hell out of his church. And this is the church that many of our people cling to, man. This is the church and the people that many of our people believe in. And this is how they treat black people, man. This is outrageous. So I'm going to go on to this last story, and then I'm going to provide my closing commentary. So you had this situation, that's been referred to as hashtag pool patrol patty. It says white apartment manager fired after calling the police on a black couple because of socks. Here you have this woman who is like in charge of the swimming pool in Winston-Salem. Well, let's see. It's not in Winston-Salem. It's in Memphis, Tennessee. The other story that I told you about was in North Carolina, but this is another story about a swimming pool. And we all know the history of black people in swimming pools. I mean, for years under segregation, black people couldn't even swim in the same pools with white people because they viewed blackness as dirty, as some kind of contaminant. They just looked down upon black people. They didn't even want black people to interact with them because they saw us as so inferior and unworthy to be in their presence. And so this is a continuation of that type of legacy. In places like South Carolina, for instance, they actually literally had a fence in the ocean to keep black people and white people separated. That's how much animosity that these people have towards black people. That's how they view black people as inferior. That's the mentality of these people. And both of these incidents happened in the South. These incidents involving the pools, and this is connected to that legacy of white supremacy. This is connected to that legacy of Jim Crowism. And, it's just a shame that these types of things continue. So this woman is cracking down on this family because somebody has on socks. Meanwhile, they're ignoring all these other rules when it comes to white people. But when it comes to black people, all of a sudden they want to be strict on the rules. And this woman or people at this particular pool called the police on this black woman and her family over some foolish thing like somebody wearing socks in a swimming pool or in a swimming pool area. And this goes on to talk about how this pool attendant said, no hats, no, this violates the rules for people to wear hats or shirts and socks and all that kind of stuff. And this black woman pointed out how there are two men who had on hats. And they, this woman was fine with that. This white woman was fine with those people having hats on, these white people violating the quote unquote rules and stuff like that. But when it comes to black people, they want to be strict about the rules. So this woman, was fired from what I understand in this article. But it's just crazy that it would even get to this point where you got somebody calling the police on black people over something as trivial as this. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and go back to the chat room to see what people are saying, and then I'm going to provide my closing commentary. I want to thank y'all for tuning in. I appreciate it. Let me just check my internet connection. So I'm going to go through your comments real quick before I close out. Well, before I go into my commentary and then close out, I want to thank y'all for tuning in. I know it's very late. And Westwood said, I hate those bastards who are so anti-black against us when we as a group have never done anything. Exactly. I mean, we've done nothing to these people. I mean, we were the ones kidnapped, man. We were the ones, segregated and humiliated for decades after slavery. I mean, there's no justification for how these people are treating us. It's like we can't even breathe while being black. We can't live while being black. Everything that we do is like scrutinized. We're viewed as, criminals. That's what happens. That's how they view black people. That's how they treat black people. And these are just everyday examples. And these things are nothing new. Like some people will get the impression that, oh, this stuff is just new. This is something that has to do with Trump. No, this stuff has been going on forever. The only difference is nowadays we have social media. Nowadays, everyone has access to a video camera on their phone, and they can easily record these incidents of racism and bigotry and racial profiling. So it's nothing new. We're just shining a light on this wickedness that we see in this society, man. For far too long, these people were able to do this stuff without it being broadcast, without people being able to notice it. And now that it's being broadcast, these people are trying to run away from it, just like roaches run away from the light when the light comes on. So let's go into these comments a little bit further. Shout out to everybody tuning in. Shout out to Westwood. Shout out to Glenn Shepard. What's up with you? So Blue Nag Room said, are any of y'all experiencing this level of racism, let alone daily? Or is it just Zion Jews BS news? Excuse me. As I said before, like, it's not just made up. These are real stories. I mean, we got to get away from this idea that everything is made up, that, everything's being manipulated by Jews. I mean, I think that a lot of times these people that have these kind of views that buy into all this conspiracy mumbo jumbo, I mean, a lot of times you're running with talking points used by white supremacists. I mean, these white supremacists say the same thing about Jews. The same people that hate the Jews hate black people. These same people that hate immigrants so much hate black people too. So the last thing we need to do is be running around with these white supremacist talking points. And, and we just got to open our eyes to the reality. The reality is these people still don't view us as equals. They don't view us as Americans. They don't even view us as human beings. They view us as criminals. They view us as up to no good. And, this is a reminder of what happened to Trayvon Martin. They saw, George Zimmerman saw Trayvon Martin. He assumed that Trayvon Martin was some kind of criminal. And the first thing that George Zimmerman did was call the police. He wanted to have the police intervene. And again, I'm going to get into the reason why that's so significant. But when the police didn't intervene, he took it upon himself to take that brother's life, man. So we just got to open our eyes to the reality. This is nothing new. The only difference is, again, that people have video cameras in their phones and they're able to record these interactions with these white racists. Yeah, so Def Rocker said people need to start getting smacked for calling the police for dumb shit. Basic. Yeah, and I agree with that. I think that what needs to happen is people should be fined for wasting police time on these frivolous type of calls. I mean, you got people killing people nowadays. You got people selling drugs, moving guns, engaged in domestic violence, all kinds of things going on. And what you want to do is waste time, waste the police time and resources on some frivolous stuff like a black boy cutting grass or somebody at a pool trying to enjoy themselves, or someone trying to go to a restaurant and have some, fun with their family, eat with their family, or someone waiting in a restaurant to meet with a friend, waiting in a coffee house to meet with their friend. You're going to waste police resources on something like that? That's insane to me. And those people should be fined for wasting police resources and time. And for one of these stories, and that's the one that involves the young brother who was cutting grass. For that particular story, the police said that they can't fine these people for making all these calls to the police because apparently they used a non-emergency line. But still, it wastes police time and resources when you have to take an officer and have him go to that particular location to talk to people and figure out what's going on. That's a waste of time. That officer could be out there instead of having his time wasted and squandered, on some BS. Shout out to Information Man Show. Yeah, just inbox me if if you would like me to come on your Google Hangouts. Feel free to inbox me. I do check my messages on YouTube, so you can definitely inbox me there. Yeah, so Blue Nag, I don't know if you're trolling or what. I don't know if you're white supremacist, or what. But the stories speak for themselves. The links are all in the description box. If somebody has a question about these stories, they can go, read them for themselves and, make a decision on their own about the situation. But, I don't, I'm not going to allow people to troll my channel or my chat room. I don't mind people disagreeing with me, but trolls won't be tolerated. So, I had to get rid of that Blue Nag person. Shout out to Water Sniper. What's good with you? Water Sniper wanted to know who was trolling. As Def Rocker pointed out, it was Blue Nag Room. Just had to delete him. Yeah, and Black the World Incorporated said people can't handle the truth because they still live in a fictional land in their own minds. Exactly. I mean, a lot of people are in denial. They can't believe the racism still exists in America. They can't believe it. So they come up with all these ridiculous ways to negate it. They even cook up these conspiracy theories, just like that guy, Alex Jones. These people, they want to believe that everything is manipulated by the Jews or Illuminati and stuff like that. They want to pretend like this racism doesn't exist, that this is just some figment of our imagination. Like whenever we had these police shootings, they want to say it's staged. They want to say that they're crisis actors. I mean, these people sound absolutely asinine and ridiculous, cooking up all this stuff, man. You know, and a lot of these people are so far to the right. They're not about changing society or improving the condition and plight of Black people. They're all about trying to downplay racism in the society, man. They're blind to the facts. They're blind to the reality. And basically, this channel is about taking off those blinders and exposing what exists in the society, this racist, white supremacist country that we live in, man. You know, even though we had a Black president and stuff like that, and people were celebrating it as the uh, bringing on of an era of post-racial politics and stuff like that, we saw that as soon as that brother got into the White House, you know, people showed him the complete disrespect. You know, they called him a witch doctor. They depicted him as a witch doctor. They questioned his citizenship, you know, questioned whether or not he was an American. You know, they depicted him as an Arab terrorist. They depicted the first family as a family of gorillas and apes and monkeys. You know, all of that kind of stuff. You know, they treated him like he was the N word, basically. And that was just a reminder of what kind of country we live in, man. It was a reminder that this country is far from being post-racial. You know, there's of police brutality go on, and they continue to go on. Every other day we have racist examples like these examples that I've cited, where basically these people have criminalized Blackness and made breathing while Black a crime, going swimming while Black a crime, going to a restaurant while Black is a crime, waiting while Black is a crime, just being Black is a crime in these people's mind, man. And they call the police on Black people. Yeah, so I'm just going to go through your comments. I'm trying to hold back on some of the things I want to say until I go through your comments. Shout out to Nikki Justice 748. Yeah, so y'all have to bear with me a second. I mean, my internet connection is bad, so I may go in and out. I'm just about done though. But yeah, I may check out that interview with Alex Jones and Farrakhan. I noticed that groups like the Nation of Islam run with a lot of these right-wing talking points. Um, you know, they basically use people like Alex Jones to support some of their theories and stuff like that. As far as I'm concerned, Alex Jones is a right-wing nut. You know, he's crazy. You know, he's not somebody that's reliable for information. You know, he is a misinformation agent. You know, he promotes disinformation. He promotes these ridiculous conspiracy theories. He downplays issues of race and racism in the society. So he doesn't have any credibility in my mind, none whatsoever. So if y'all could bear with me a second. I'm just trying to go through your comments. Yeah, you may be right. I mean, when I heard that nag room, I thought maybe that sounds like somebody that would be on his channel. So you may be onto something. Power to the people. Yeah, Def Rocker said the hate is still embedded in them. I mean, and a lot of these people, despite all these changes in the laws, despite the relative progress that we have in society, these people cling on to their racist views. I mean, a lot of these people still view Black people as subhuman. That's how they think about us. They view us as criminals. And the sad thing is, the media promotes this idea of black man as a criminal, as black people as criminals. Like whether we're talking about the news and the way they present certain stories by, constantly showing images of black men in handcuffs, black men as criminal suspects. And then when you put on top of that movies depicting black men as criminals, black women as criminals, and when you have a music industry that glorifies the criminalization of the black community, it's no wonder that you would have people view black people as criminals. And this is all a part of the dehumanization of the black community. Like when you can dehumanize people, make them less than human, it's easy to desensitize people as well. So when people are dehumanized, you don't sympathize with them when they are arrested for crimes, alleged crimes. You don't sympathize with them when you have these incidents of police brutality. Just like during Nazi Germany, they desensitized the German people to the Jews. They made the Jews dehumanized. They dehumanized the Jews. And once they were able to dehumanize them, it was easy for the Nazis to commit genocide against them. And, by criminalizing the black community, it's easy for these police to kill black people. And it's easy for them to get away with it because they already view black people as criminals, and, the jury pools are tainted with this idea of black criminality and pathology. So they come up with all kinds of excuses justifying police brutality against black people. So this is a very serious thing, man, and these individual examples are just small examples. They are like manifestations of this larger issue of the criminalization of black people and black bodies. That's what it all boils down to. So I'm going to continue on through your comments. Power to the People said they know exactly what they're doing, calling the police for frivolous stuff. They have that Jared Taylor mindset. Yeah, and I'm not really that familiar with Jared Taylor. All I know is that he, had that debate with Tariq Nasheed. I don't know much about his ideology. I know he's one of those alt-right idiots. But other than that, I don't know much about him. So let me continue on. Tanya Jones said, yes, technology has helped to log these events in real time. Exactly. So it's like as soon as we see a police brutality incident or we see one of these examples of blatant racial profiling, we're able to capture it because every single one of us just about has a phone with a video camera on it. So we have the power to police the police. We have the power to police these racist and white supremacists. We have that power. And we have to harness that power and use that power, exercise that power. Because people want to act like it's some figment of our imagination when we talk about white supremacy and racism in society. I mean, you actually have fools here on YouTube with over 100,000 subscribers questioning whether or not white supremacy exists. I mean, to even engage in such a debate is to legitimize that ridiculous assertion that white supremacy doesn't exist. People like that are a joke. They're not worthy of debating because we see all these examples. I mean, these are at least four examples that are cited of racism in this society. And these, again, are just small manifestations of the larger problem of racism, white supremacy in this society. It's even more profound and pervasive when you go into the institutions of the society, whether we're talking about the criminal justice system, the educational system, whether we're even talking about healthcare. All of these different systems are set up in such a way that black people are placed at the bottom of these structures and, white people are placed at the top tier. Somehow YouTube automatically hide some of these comments. I don't know why they do that. So pro woman Jay said, "What about whiteism instead of white supremacy?" Yeah, and I hear all these debates and stuff like that. I mean, um, I hear people saying, "Well, don't use the word white supremacy." When I use that word, those words, I'm not saying that these people are supreme or anything like that. I don't believe that they are supreme. I think that that is a myth. You know, that white supremacy is a myth. But when you look at the history, I mean, it's about them trying to promote the idea that they are superior. So I call it what it is. You know, it's this myth and lie of white supremacy. It is a system that is set up to keep them on top and to keep black people on the bottom and other people of color on the bottom. So it is what it is. They want to maintain a situation where white people are on top, and that's white supremacy. So I don't get caught up into these semantics about, you know, whether or not we should be using the terms white supremacy. Um, because the bottom line is this: by using that term, I'm not saying that they're superior. They're not superior um, to anyone. When we look at our accomplishments as a people, we can measure up against any other group of people on the face of the earth. I mean, there would be no human civilization if it wasn't for black people. We are the founders of civilization. So let me continue on with the comments. Thanks for your support, Gerard. I appreciate it. So Nikki Justice said we had a weaponized mulatto as president. You know, I disagree with like this hostility that all these people have towards Obama just because he was biracial and all that kind of stuff. I disagree with that. You know, I disagree with the notion that he did absolutely nothing for black people. I've done plenty of videos pointing out policies that he advocated for and he pushed that were beneficial for black people. And I'm not going to go through all of that right now, explaining, you know, what he did for black people. All I would do is encourage you all to look at my prior videos on that subject. If I get a chance to, I will post links in the description box so that you all can, well, not links in the description box, either in the cards or in the, I may do both, maybe in the description box or in the cards so people could watch them for yourself, where I detail like all these different policies that Obama pushed for that were beneficial to black people. So I don't see him as some weaponized mulatto, if you mean in the sense of being weaponized against black people or not being beneficial to black people. Yeah, I agree. I mean, Alex Jones is a clown. He is a charlatan. You know, this man has been sued by families. You know, families who take issue with him claiming that they were crisis actors and that some of these shootings didn't take place and stuff like that. I mean, these are families who have loved ones that they lost. So they have brought a lawsuit against this guy. I mean, this guy is no different from any other snake oil salesman, any other charlatan trying to get over on people. And he's a right-wing fanatic. I mean, the fact that you have black people that actually identify with this guy and actually listen to this guy just speaks to the level of ignorance that is pervasive in some sectors of our community. Yeah, so hopefully y'all can bear with these little interruptions to my live stream from my bad internet connection. I have to find out what's going on with my internet. I'm going to look into that probably on Monday. In the meantime, I may just do live streams from my phone. Yeah, I hear you, Nikki. You're saying I'm breaking up. Hopefully, the segments that aren't disrupted are you're able to hear them. If you all can let me know if you can hear me right now, I would appreciate it. Am I choppy? I may have to do this whole thing over again. Hopefully, I won't have to. But if y'all can let me know if I'm choppy right now, I would appreciate it. Okay, I guess the one means you can hear me. Okay, so power to the people said I'm good right now. Wax Sector said, Wax Sector Killer said, the white man is messing with your internet. Man, you never know, man. You never know. Shout out to Will Richards. Thanks for saying the video is great. Thanks for the thumbs up. Nikki Justice. Shout out to Elaine Lloyd. Thanks for tuning in. All right. Thanks for hanging in there, Glenn Shepard. You know, I know that there's a couple of issues. So I'm going to close this out with a couple of comments. You know, it's very dangerous that you have these white racists basically using police as attack dogs on black people. We know what the police do when they arrive on the scene. We know about the history of police violence in the black community, the history of police brutality, the history of police misconduct. So anytime these people call the police on a black person, they are putting that black person's life in jeopardy. We know about what happened to Tamir Rice. They called the police on that brother, a brother playing with a toy gun in the park. You know, even though when the people called the police, they said he may have a toy gun. We don't know if it's a real gun or whatever. The police arrived on the scene, and within a couple of seconds, they murdered that brother. They executed that brother. They assassinated that brother. That's what happens when people call the police. We've seen all these incidents before where some minor thing ends up being a life and death matter where a brother or sister is killed by these police. So by using these police as attack dogs for these minor things, these people are putting black lives in jeopardy. You have situations where black people are killed, where black people are beaten, and black people are being deprived of their freedom in some of these situations where, you know, they call the police. Like in that Starbucks situation, you had these brothers handcuffed and taken away to jail over waiting while black. It's a very serious situation, man. It is like signing somebody's death warrant when you call these police. These police, in many ways, act just like their predecessors. They act like modern day slave catchers, man. Just like when, you know, when the slave got out of line and he left the plantation, they would get these slave catchers to bring them back on the plantation. And that's basically how they're using the police, to keep black people in line. They have a problem with a black person disobeying them. They call the police. They have a problem with a black boy cutting the grass, cutting a section of their grass. They're going to call the police on that brother. A black man doesn't want to get out of a Starbucks store. They want to call the police. They want to call the police because a sister doesn't have an ID when she's not even required to produce an ID. So they call the police. They are using these police to keep black people in check, to keep black people in line, to keep black people in order, just like they called upon the slave catchers, just like they used the overseers on the plantation. That's how they're using these police. That's how they're using them, man. And it's just a shame, man. And, you know, this situation involving the sister at the swimming pool, I mean, she's an immigrant from what I understand, you know, from an African country, if I'm not mistaken. And that just brings home the point about like how some, you know, you have this issue in the black community where, for instance, you have people thinking they're better than African Americans because they're from the islands, or they're from Africa, or they're from Europe or something like that. They think that somehow they're better than the African Americans, that somehow they have certain privileges that African Americans don't have, that somehow they're viewed any differently from African Americans. In this situation involving this pool incident where you had this Jasmine Edwards harassed by this pool attendant, just takes all of that out the window, man. It just makes it plain that in the minds of some of these people, whether you're from Africa, whether you're from the Caribbean, whether you're from America, whether you're from Europe, or whether you're from someplace in Latin America, at the end of the day, in the minds of these people, you're just another nigger. And that's how they treat you. You know, they don't view you as a human being. They don't even view you as an American. They view you as the N-word. They view you as a criminal. They view you as suspicious. They see your blackness as a badge of criminality. So the first thing that they do when you get out of pocket in their minds, when you get out of order, when you're not a good, obedient little Negro, they call the police on you, thereby jeopardizing your very life. And, you know, I think that these people that waste police resources like this, they need to be fined. There needs to be some kind of law that addresses this situation, you know, that addresses these frivolous calls that are made to the law enforcement authorities, jeopardizing people's lives. I think that's like the third time I had a problem with my internet connection. So you close out, just gonna read through these comments real quick before I do so.